Hello and welcome. I'm Joanna Junak and today we are continuing our end-of-year GFN.TV tradition. Will Godfrey from Filter is with us and he's prepared a roundup of the most interesting, unexpected and eye-opening news from the world of harm reduction over the past year. Let's hear it.
Some of the most globally significant tobacco harm reduction news that Filter covered in 2025 came just recently with the World Health Organization's much dreaded COP11 meeting. It was an ugly spectacle, as Kiran Sidhu reported, full of disinformation and prohibitionist demands. The worst potential policy damage was largely averted, however, at least until next time, thanks to pushback from a number of nations. Still, it could only be considered successful by the lowest of bars, wrote Martin Cullip, who depicted the anti-science ideology of a Bloomberg-funded ecosystem where countries with impressive smoking reductions are smeared and those that ban harm reduction options praised. Talking of bans, every time I do one of these roundups, I unfortunately have to run through a lot of them. In 2025, Filter reported on a new disposables ban in Belgium, France banning disposables and pouches, flavor bans in US jurisdictions, and Malaysia's impending total vape ban, among others. Bans were also thwarted in some places, like Canada. Meanwhile, people struggle on under existing bans or heavy restrictions. In India, doctors called for change, as Helen Redmond reported. In Thailand, crackdowns continue, though there is some hope. And in Australia, some medical professionals are conducting honest nicotine education on the down low. 2025 was also the year Vietnam imposed its vape ban, and Mark Gunther's report examined how this came about. No prizes for guessing the involvement of Bloomberg cash. Even the UK got in on it, implementing its disposables ban in June. Crystal Ball award to Kiran, who reported in May that this looked unenforceable, and then in August that illicit disposable sales were duly continuing. Heavy taxation of THR products, as seen by moves in Ireland particularly and the wider EU, amounts to another way to limit access. Unregulated markets are one inevitable consequence of prohibitions or overzealous regulators, and this is increasingly true in the US as well as the UK, illustrated Roger Bates' analysis. The FDA should probably get its own undistinguished chapter here. In January, Mark told the sorry tale of the gigantic, chaotic mess the agency has made of the US vape market. Subsequent developments included sweeping cuts by the Trump administration. In April, Brian King, director of the agency's Center for Tobacco Products and not universally popular in the THR world, was among the mass layoffs, but soon found himself a new role at the Bloomberg-funded anti-THR Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, as Skip Murray described. The Triton case on flavored vapes didn't go as advocates hoped in the Supreme Court. On the other hand, the FDA authorized its first nicotine pouches in January, which Martin, for one, welcomed, and then sought to streamline its pouch review process. And in July, the agency finally authorized Juul vapes after a years-long battle, though the damage of the anti-Juul frenzy, as Helen described it, still lingers. Research can make for happier reading than policy, and some of the findings we covered this year included pouches closing the THR gender gap in Sweden, the influence of pre-existing brain structures on early nicotine use, weighing against the gateway theory, and switching to THR products rapidly boosting fitness, among others. But research is often inherently flawed in claiming THR harms, as we frequently highlighted, and or distorted by media, as Kiran has repeatedly covered. THR advocates fight on, and we've profiled inspiring figures like Dr. Mark Tyndall and Kirk Yeo this year, as well as strategy generation at events like the Global Forum on Nicotine. They bring important ideas to the table, like when Nafisat Dasola Jimmer wrote how the world needs gender-specific THR, and others focused on including lived experience in the policy conversation. but it's work conducted under fire, and we've often reported on smears used against people who call for THR access. Funding is a problem too, and US advocates were saddened by the demise of consumer group Kazaa this year. Ultimately, the people who really pay are those impacted by smoking-related disease, as Skip movingly noted when she wrote about how people with COPD, like her husband, are being failed. The efforts of consumers and other advocates are best reflected not by scarce policy wins, but by what people in the real world are actually doing. To end on a positive, I'll point to some milestones in 2025. Sweden and New Zealand are both pushing smoke-free status thanks to pouch and vape uptake respectively. But in other places too, despite misinformation dominating the airwaves, progress is real. As we reported in February, most US adults who quit smoking now use safer nicotine products to do so. And in Britain, we reported just recently, vaping is now more common than smoking. When the rest of the world can say similar, we'll be in a much better place.